story, another bureaucrat bites the dust. Years ago, I was hiking in the French Alps. It was a beautiful, sunny Sunday afternoon. When I got back to my car, obviously I had not hidden my purse well enough because the window was broken and my purse was gone. Now, this wasn't that big a deal. Yeah, it was a hassle, sure. I had to cancel my credit cards and replace the window. And of course, there was that question looming in the back of my mind: where did I find that favorite pink lipstick? Okay, no. The real problem? The real problem was that in 10 days' time, I was going to be leaving for a very important business trip. This trip marked the beginning of a large project that I was going to be doing, which, let's just say, that translated into a lot of money. And there was no way I could afford to miss this trip. So Monday morning, back in Switzerland, I called the embassy in Bern. I explained the situation to this really nice guy. He says, "Sure, come into the embassy and we'll give you a temporary passport." And I asked, "Is it okay if I come in on Thursday?" He said, "Yeah, no problem." Okay, great. So Thursday morning comes around and I arrive. I am the second person in line. Very impressed with myself. And I remember thinking, it's just a matter of paperwork. So I approached the woman behind the bulletproof glass with my passport photos in hand. Let's call her Beverly for the sake of the story. I started to explain the situation to Beverly and that I had my passport stolen on Sunday. And then Beverly aggressively interrupts me and says, "That happened 4 days ago? Someone could have been using your passport for 4 days." And I'm a little bit shocked by her level of intensity. Now, before I even had a chance to say anything, she added, "Oh, and those pictures, they're the wrong size. You'll have to get new ones." I stayed calm as best I could, and I said, I spoke to a gentleman on Monday who told me I could come in and get a temporary passport for my trip to London next week." And then, and I'm not making this up, people, she said to me, "There are no men who work here." And I swear, just as she said that, in that exact moment, a guy walks behind her. It was all I could do not to point this out. By now, I realized the likelihood of this going as expected was diminishing rapidly. The next thing Beverly said to me, "This is not an emergency. You don't live in the States. You live here in Switzerland. You don't have to go anywhere." And at that moment, I imagined all of the money I was going to lose. And I saw my life flash before my eyes. Or maybe it was Beverly's life I saw flashing before my eyes. Either way, this was not going well. I asked myself, Amy, what would be another response? And for a moment I thought, well, I could go pray and cry and moan and whine and maybe she'd give me what I needed. The problem was, with this option, that was going to be rather humiliating. Then, of course, my predator response kicked in. I imagined saying something like, "Yeah, now I understand why they make that glass bulletproof." Of course, this was definitely not going to give me what I wanted. And believe it or not, as hopeless as I was feeling, I managed to stay highly motivated. So I resisted the temptation to go predator or prey. Instead, I calmly said, "Do you think you could ask the consulate?" She said, "No, he's going to say no." So I used what I call the broken record approach, and I repeated the same thing again, slowly and calmly. "Do you think you could simply check with him and find out?" "No, I told you he was going to say no." So at this point, I thought, Amy, back off. So I walked over to a table to fill in the paperwork she'd given me. I remember being so angry that my hand was shaking so much that I couldn't even fill in the paperwork. So finally, after a couple of deep breaths, I completed the paperwork and I went back to the window where Beverly was, only to discover she had disappeared and the phantom man was standing there. I very tentatively slipped the paperwork underneath the window, and after answering a couple of his questions he then instructed me to go to the cashier's desk and pay 116 francs. I thought, run, Amy, run as fast as you can before Beverly finds out. So I dashed over to the cashier's window, only to discover Beverly behind the window. So I said, I have the paperwork. And she looked at me with a mild, hostile tone. She said, what did you tell the consulate? And I explained I just answered his questions. At this point, with a much warmer tone in her voice, Beverly said, well, I talked to him and we decided to make an exception for you. I was flabbergasted. So I decided to seize the moment, and increasing my partner behaviors, I said, oh, Beverly, thank you so much. I could just give you a big hug. Don't worry, I didn't indicate that, tempting as it was. So then Beverly said, oh, listen, since we're doing a temporary passport, those photos you have there, they'll work for today. Oh, and here's an envelope for you with my name on it and a stamp, so that when you do get the right size photographs, you can just mail them back to me. Oh, and here's a piece of paper that shows you on a map where you can find the exact machine in the Bern train station to get the right size photos. In a matter of moments, Beverly flip-flopped from nasty predator to playful partner. At this point, I thought, oh, this is just too good. I want to see what else I can get now. So I said, Beverly, I have to go to the Paraguayan embassy later today, which was true. You don't happen to know where that is by any chance, do you? She said, hold on, let me get a map. She runs off, prints up a map, comes back, and then shows me how to get to the embassy by foot. Oh, and then she writes the number of the tram in case I didn't feel like walking. What an amazing feeling it was that day, leaving with my temporary passport in hand. That's my story for today. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to visit my website, check out my YouTube channel, or my book, ta-da, The Ego Tango, for more tips on becoming a more powerful communicator. Thanks for tuning in, and happy partnering.